Tabletop Talk. Today is just Rick and Kyle. Woohoo!
Or is Rick here? Or am I
no.
just crickets?
No, not again. The doctor's already prescribed me meds for this. Well, assuming that this isn't one person recording today, we're actually going to be talking. We're going off of the side trail here a little bit. As we last left off, we were going over some of the new D&D rules, but today we decided to actually talk about new players and concerns, valid points, and things that come up. We cover a lot of DM stuff lately, so we thought it was a time to switch it up a little and see where we go. How you doing today, Rick?
Oh, I feel great. It's super different being here with not the full group.
It is.
Because I know I've missed some of these sessions and that you guys have had to do it with like very few, but this is my first not having everybody. It's like, oh wow, this.
I know you're like kind of like shrunken in right now.
I promise, producer Chris almost kind of hear myself too. Like it's great.
I don't bite hard.
He bites with a Y. So, Rick, how long have you been playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Actively, like I know we way early on kind of said how we started and everything, but like actively playing probably really only just a couple years. Okay. Like I started really actively playing again during COVID with a bunch of my like high school buddies and stuff. We were like we couldn't go anywhere. We were all stuck. Most of us are parents. And so
I feel that.
Of toddlers and like youngins. So it was like, all right, we are going a little nuts being at home. Love our kids, but it was a lot. We're out of that phase, so that's good.
Yeah.
But it was kind of just an avenue. We're all super nerds, so it's like this fits. So let's just play. And it was fun. Like I think we played through over the course of like 6 or 7 months. I think we played through one of the Underdark like built-in scenarios into. It was either in the DM guidebook or one of those like easy source books. So, but for all of us that weren't used to playing, it was really easy. It was really fun to just interact and kind of get used to and acquainted with like the mechanics of playing an RPG again, because I hadn't played since middle school.
You've been playing 5e, correct? Like the whole time almost?
Oh, yeah.
Aside from, I assume, middle school.
And that would have been, dated myself a little bit. That was 2001, 2000.
Ooh, so yeah, we're looking at probably
2002. That's
I think still 3.5 at that time.
And if it was D&D, I don't exactly remember what we played. I know we played a lot of Warhammer. Like we played some dungeony like RPG stuff, but then we did play some Warhammer stuff, which I didn't realize until very recently was even Warhammer at all. When I was talking with a buddy, I was like, God, do you remember what we did in the club when we weren't playing the campaign? He goes, yeah, bro, it was Warhammer. I was like, but it wasn't, it was like armies. And he goes, Warhammer. And I was like, but it wasn't just like space marines. It was like goblins and rats and like tombs and mummies.
Warhammer
and
fantasy.
And he was like, yeah.
That was my jam.
Warhammer. I loved the rats because they had the skirmish ability.
The Skaven. They are my all-time favorite. Skaven, it goes for me currently now it's Age of Sigmar. I still stand on Skaven are like the best. They will always have a special place in my heart. First mini I ever had was a Skaven model.
Excellent.
Followed probably closely now that some of the armies have changed as time has gone on. I would say following that's probably Ogre Kingdom.
Okay.
Which is a lot of fun. But you and me will have to play Age of Sigmar sometime because I know Trevin wanted to learn Dr. RPG out there.
I am not a visually artistic person. Like I can't paint, I can't draw. I'm more of like literary, like writing and like lore and like stories. So my miniatures were usually like paper clips and like I would like roll up crumpled pieces of paper into like a ball.
This is
like,
a tank.
This is a medium-sized guy. And then the other kids that would play were like, here's my like gigantic army. And he had them like interlocking. It was like, all right. So do we want to play this out or do you just win? Because
I will say fantasy was way more complex than Age of Sigmar. They're like two whole different games.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny you brought up that it was Warhammer because, and you can attest to this, the viewers aren't aware of this, but I've been trying to sell Rick some of my Warhammer lately.
He has. I'm only interested in a single piece, but he still wants to sell me the whole set. So once that price goes down, or the desperation,
that price can't go down.
The desperation, once it gets high enough, I'm just going to walk away with that cool little
I will
Witch
say,
King of Angmar.
I will say
miniature.
I do have a new deal for you that we'll talk about after the podcast.
Yeah, perfect.
And but no, okay, so cool. Yeah, so you played a little bit that was either probably 3.5 or a makeshift thing, kind of like Jeremy talked about on the Free Friday podcast we're doing.
Yeah,
that should be coming out pretty soon. I think after this episode, we'll have a couple episodes done that we can start to release.
The teacher that was our advisor, it could have just been him too. Like he had table pieces, like it was tiled, and like he could bring a new piece in and stuff like that, but he didn't have a guidebook with him. Like he just played it.
Yeah, I bet you he knew the rules.
Very reactive to us.
Yeah, I think he just basically kind of winged it to like the simplified version.
Yeah.
That's still really cool.
Oh yeah, it was super fun. And I got into that. And so a buddy of mine had Wood Elves, like a few of the books for the armies and stuff. So we would sit for hours reading through and be like, okay, well, we get a certain amount of points that you can assign to your armies. Like, okay, well, we do this and that, and we have a heroic creature here, and we would just sit there, wouldn't do a single thing with these armies that we would build, but we just sit for hours and hours and hours building them and be like, this is so cool. And we'd look through the book and be like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to draw that, but I'll have him. Yeah, that's great.
Oh my gosh. So you are literally describing my whole childhood, and I'm like in nostalgia mode here. I'm almost forgetting the whole point of this episode. So we'll quickly go back to there. So I guess what's the hardest thing you've found, like as a new player? Is there anything in there that felt like it took a while to get, or that maybe you still aren't understanding?
Ironically, as I literally just like seconds ago said that I'm more gifted in the literary like technique and skill of like stories and lore building, creating a good, compelling backstory was the hardest part for me.
That can be tough.
Because D&D is not designed for you to make this one-hit obliterator character that's perfect in every way, that has no flaws. It's designed for you to build a character that is supposed to have weaknesses and supposed to work with a team or not work well with a team, but yet your character's stuck with that. So it's having to embrace the flaws, and it is just so hard, especially as someone who likes to write and has a story where it's like, okay, the protagonist has the biggest plot armor of this entire like narrative that I want to write. Other than like, if I am specifically wanting something catastrophic to happen, nothing bad's going to happen to this character. And creating your D&D character and creating your backstory, you're like, I can't do that. Because one, it's
either
good.
Too early.
Yeah, it's good in a character for a story, but in D&D, it's not fun. And it's not fun to play with when your character can do everything. And there's no point of having the rest of your party around.
And I get that. I think that's where a lot of people struggle is that when they write a backstory, they almost want to write out who their character is. But realistically, it's almost like you're writing the prologue chapter in a book that's just like the so-and-so happens to be on a farm like in their 8th year, and eventually bandits come and attack, and now we're taking off from there. That like they spend the next 10 years or so working on like a ship or something to give, say, like the seafarer background and all, which I believe you took for your most recent character, right? Or which background did you pick for?
I think I picked
Ularist.
I think I picked criminal, like a thief, because it's designed to eventually for him to become a pirate. He's just
really
not ready for it.
Yours.
And partially he's not, quote, air quotes here, not ready for it because we're not at a level where we can pick like subclasses yet, but he's a rogue, but he will be a pirate. I guess it's okay to talk about it because by the time
this
the rest of the group
we'll
hears
hopefully have had our next game.
It's an Aarakocra, and his clan, his tribe, whatever, his group of birds gets visited by sky pirates who have found out how to make ships fly. And it's like not the single greatest, like it's not a good visit, but it's also not like a full raid and sack of his village. It's just they're bad pirates and they invaded and sort of helped, but mainly didn't. But Yalrist caught on and was like, this is the greatest thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, he's like, this is my whole life goal now, is to be a pirate. I want to be a pirate.
Honestly, after reading your thing and talking with you to get clarifications, I've just come to the conclusion that Yalrist is essentially Monkey D. Luffy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well, maybe not as cheerful. But...
No, but down to like the flawed character of like, Luffy wants to be
the pirate king.
Yeah, he wants to get the One Piece. He wants to rule the Red Line, but he's also he's got all of like the cool powers, but like he's also kind of bad at it and needs everybody else to like help him. And that's kind of what a Yalrist is, because he went out and tried to do it too early and failed.
That's kind of how like I feel with this channel sometimes. It's like I'm limited, and so I need like Chris to help with the like actual audio and such. Jeremy's got crazy charisma.
Yep.
Rick gives us the best dude man bro vibes ever and unleashes the most about himself on this show.
Yep.
And Dr. RPG, do I have to say more? The name says it right there. I just have the heart that's like, I really want this to happen.
But that's what I've also really appreciated about consistently playing, probably for the first time in 3 or 4 years, is being able to like consistently be in this, like sitting down. I have I have a handful of source books myself. And I've always had
I know. I've seen you bring them in to line them up with mine.
Oh, yeah, of course. It doesn't match up.
I think you're like 3 books under me at this point.
Yep.
And,
but I've had them, and you read through them, and you're like, oh, well, I want to get this source book because it introduces the Artificer class. And it's like, I need that. Ooh, and this one allows me to be a samurai. Buy that one. But I never really went through the effort of like going through them and like actually making characters out of them. It was always just, I want them. And my wife makes fun of me all the time because for a long time they just sat on the shelf. She goes, are you going to use those, or were those just empty purchases? It's like, no, I'm going to use them. And then I wouldn't. And then I'm now getting a chance to actively and consistently do that. And I'm seeing my ability and my like creativity in backstories get so much better. Like my backstory for Waters was pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's a great character to play. And my Yalrist backstory and character is really good. And it's getting me excited that I'm now just like, it's almost like a growing addiction a little bit. It's like, okay, well, I haven't made a character in like 4 days and I'm starting to get the shakes. So I'm just going to sit down and make a new character because this is great.
So you guys heard that. Even new players can be just as obsessed as us older players out there.
Oh, yeah.
So when it came down to making characters, has that become easy for you, or where would you say the actual character building is on a difficulty as someone who's still kind of getting a feel for it?
It's definitely harder doing it yourself. Like just having a physical source book and trying to lay out and do your character sheet, where it's just the printed out character sheet on a piece of paper, and trying to fill all of that out yourself can be intimidating and can be a little rough if you're not used to it. So having resources like D&D Beyond that can digitalize it for you is huge. Because especially like my Yalrist character is the first time I've ever played as a rogue. So I'm not used to some of like the details or the semantics behind it. But every piece down to like when you pick your level, like it tells you, oh, hey, at this level, you need to do this before you can continue your character sheet. Oh, I never would have thought of that. And then it kind of explains everything out for you rather than in like a source book. For the most part, when you're making it, it just says you can do this, you can do that. And some of the bigger elements, it'll say, hey, if you choose this route, it gives you this, that, or this.
And it doesn't help that the source books don't go in like an actual order that you would do to make the character.
Yeah.
I do agree that definitely it's so much easier with tools out there like D&D Beyond. And if you're willing to put out a few extra bucks to use it, that's great. We just, the channel itself just officially subscribed to Master Tier on there, which I know Rick's happy about because I have the majority of the books on there and I finally could file share.
Yeah.
But ignorant Kyle here, who's bad with technology, didn't realize you needed to subscribe to the Master Tier to share that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Which to add on to just things you might not realize about D&D Beyond for character creation, a basic non-paying user gets what they call the basic rules, which is not a player's handbook. Or the Dungeon Master Guide. So in order
it's lacking a lot.
To get even your basic one, like your generic player's handbook source guide, you do have to pay for it, in addition to if you already physically own it. So that's one of the pieces. And that started because D&D Beyond used to not be a part of Wizards. Right. It was its own thing. It has now changed, and Wizards does own D&D Beyond now, which still makes the fact that you have to rebuy your purchases a little bit more of like, they're a huge, successful, multinational company that likes to make money. So that's probably why.
Oh, trust me, man. This would be a whole, I think the next time it's just you and me, we have to lay into it, because I think you and me are the only ones who've been following heavily the company side of things.
Oh yeah. Between Magic and D&D, they're probably arguably their biggest brands.
Yeah.
And they're
without a doubt.
And I mean, not that it was really any different when it was just Wizards, but since Hasbro, a bigger, more multinational conglomerate in charge now, there are definitely some things that could be said about the difference between players and investors.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So basically, just a quick recap there. The too long don't read is that and you could correct me on this, but you're basically just saying still to this day, even just source book character creation's a little stressful, but with tools like D&D Beyond, it's a lot easier.
And the more you do digitalized character creation, I don't know. I don't have experience with other digital platforms that might help do character sheets for you. I'm sure there are some out there that all it is just a blank slate and you put in the figures and it can do a lot of the conversions. D&D Beyond is just the most comprehensive and easiest to quite literally point and click and choose all details.
Okay.
And it's very simple and easy to get used to.
And as long as you're friends also with somebody who has the majority of the books on there and they have a subscription, they can file share with you guys in the same campaign. So I think that's a great deal on that.
That is a recommended route even by D&D Beyond. It's not this weird file sharing go around the system. I want the stuff, but I don't want to pay. D&D Beyond says, if you have a player, have them set up your campaign. If they are a paying subscriber, they can share what they have, and there you go.
And while I'm not a huge fan of all the cash grab stuff, I do really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And all. I think that was the most brilliant move they could make on there.
Yeah.
For years, before even D&D Beyond, I thought about talking to one of my buddies who actually works on programs like software and such for big companies, meeting up with him and setting up a similar thing that's I'll do all the typing for descriptions and everything. I will reword everything if necessary, just to make a quick D&D player calculator, basically. So outside of that, then, when it comes to gameplay, did it feel to you, and does it still feel to you sometimes a little either awkward or hard to get into, or did that feel kind of fluid going into it?
I think the only sense of awkwardness is just it's a generic, and it's on the table, in the game, or otherwise. It's just getting used to how you play with other people.
Yeah.
It's the exact same way of playing Monopoly for the first time with somebody. Is this someone who's going to take this game way too seriously? Or is this a game that I'm going to be able to excel in because the person can play, but they're super chill and they don't take stuff too seriously? So I will get to buy everything up. It's learning the nuance of who you're playing with, I think, is really the only awkward part.
Okay.
And then just getting into character, I have said several times, I'm not much of a voice guy. I can do a pretty good duck sound for my platypus.
He spent a whole time telling us, since we started this, I don't do voices. We ran our first one shot in the Golden Shroud saga that Jeremy is running for the group, that we're going to be doing some retelling stories on there. I think we're trying to make a little mini cartoon comic series of it that we get to retell the story to you guys, similar to a Vox Machina setup, but nowhere near as
I was going to say
quality.
Very similar to Vox Machina. almost indiscernible.
All of a sudden he just like was sitting there telling us for so long, up to the same day, I don't do voices. All of a sudden and Waters gets mad. And what's he do? He pulls Donald Duck out.
Oh, it was great. But that's the beauty of playing as like animal creatures, like a platypus. You don't have to do voices. You just have to do a sound. And luckily I'm pretty good at that duck sound. And that's like the only one I can do. So it was, but it was brilliant. It was a panic moment. It like wasn't an expected panic moment, like even for me, for what the character would do.
I'm pretty sure I'm the one who put you in that spot too.
But like it worked perfectly because it like the sound and like the play was great for the table, but like it was even learning in the exact moment of like, I think I just developed that Waters doesn't like being confined into spaces or being in the dark, which is very ironic because platypus live underground.
I know. I was going to say they're dark, little burrowing creatures.
Yeah, but he was not happening.
Well, I love it that it would happen then with my character, Sir Reginald. He is a Harengon who's essentially like an ex-bodyguard to Tatiana, the fairy queen, and he doesn't like getting wet, and Water's number one strategy is to flood everything. Yep. So it's kind of perfect that together they just keep, without intending to, making the other one like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, it's great. And like through that and playing in Eric Coker, I think I've really enjoyed playing like as like
avian creatures.
Well, just animals. Like,
yeah,
it makes it to the point where like playing as a human feels like a boring, like, I guess I'll play a human. It's like, well, there's so many other cool stuff. Like in the character creation and the lore, like as I'm getting more used to that, like I'm finding myself really enjoying just the research of stuff and like finding like resources that are really aid with homebrewing, because a lot of my like fandom and nerddom is outside of D&D itself.
Yeah.
It's within like the Middle Earth and Tolkien universe. It's like Marvel stuff. It's all sorts of weird sci-fi or fantasy. So it's like a Legend of Zelda. It's like, what can I find that maybe somebody else built? Ooh, here's a really great character or like race, species soon, a race of a character where they've put all the feats and stuff like that. Like Waters himself is a Clunari that I just happenstantially found on Imgur of a guy that put it in. And then
for everyone out there, Waters happens to be a homebrew race.
Yeah.
It's a really cool one. It's pretty balanced. So just it's a cool one to look up.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend
it is on D&D Wiki or Dungeon Masters Guild, I think. It's like $1 donation to the guy that built it.
Well, and if you're in my campaigns, I added the race onto D&D Beyond. Took me forever, but I know Rick's appreciated it.
Yeah. So. Like I was looking the other night and I was like, platypus are fun. What about an otter? And I found I found a few, and they're not all like super well detailed. So it's like, got to keep looking. But like, something about, and it's probably the fact that I read Redwall in middle school.
That, for me, that's why I really like the Herringons, because, oh my gosh, he first appears in Matameo, Basil.
Oh, yeah.
The hair stag. He was my favorite character, and that's why I was like, I've got to be a Herringon.
So my favorite part of Redwall, so my middle name, it's a old English middle name, it's Leverett.
Okay.
And it means a young hare. And there are characters who the type of rabbit that they are in Redwall are classified as leverets.
That is true.
I lost my mind as a kid reading it and be like, oh my gosh, I'm in this book. But yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of that, a little bit of the fantasy play, but playing as like creatures and more like animal based is just more fun to me than it is playing like a human. And there's nothing against a human character. Like I'm trying to rebuild the Witch King of Angmar right now, and I'm going through a bunch of different like ways of trying to build it, but he's more than likely going to be a human.
Yeah, I think human variant's going to be your best bet. Actually, after we're done on here, I have another race I could show you that I think you would like. So I know we're running low on time here. Producer Chris has been giving us the eye. And sorry, let me.
Yeah.
I had the question and then I lost it. It was like that when you walk through a door frame.
Uh-huh.
And so what would you say as kind of a final thing out there? What's the things you found are the hardest part, and what maybe is the best advice you would give to a fellow new player looking for source help and such?
I would say one of the hardest parts for me is finding out how to balance and manage the group play. My personality is I'm very charismatic, I'm very outgoing, I'm very extroverted, and it's very easy for me, whether I'm intending to or not, to just take over a group and be the more, I guess, quote unquote dominant personality.
The main character syndrome from before.
Yeah, it's just easy, natural. I was a summer camp counselor for several years. Like, it is very natural for me to be loud, kind of directive, and just kind of be the one making decisions or being in charge of a group. Not necessarily but just kind of going into that. And D&D is about sharing the attention and sharing the play as much as possible. And so making an intentional effort of like, okay, if I'm going to play this, I'm not stepping on anyone's feet. Like, I'm not going to like make decisions for anyone. Like, if I have an idea of how I want to play, or like this group decision coming up, like I'll make sure that my opinion is heard, or like, I think we should do this. But it's also a group play. And if the group play is like, no, then you have to adapt. And usually how I end up doing that is it just becomes part of the characters, like begrudgingly going along. It's like, I think we should be doing this. But the group's we're doing something as a group, or the campaign has to move forward. The railroad idea of like, you have to get from point A to point B. You are taking 6 hours in this area that was supposed to take 10 minutes. We need to move on. Yeah. It's like, no, I won't, because I want to do this still. And you just have to adapt and absorb into like the play of the group. And a lot of times, the better you can do at that, the more seamless you can make your, like, my personality into just the character itself.
I honestly, I know you just said that you like playing the animals. I think honestly, you'd make a great dwarf. And I'll like just making the comment. And I love playing dwarves. I think they're hilarious and they're great. I'm a huge fan of all the short folk.
Yeah.
And, not because I'm under 6 foot tall. And producer Chris just laughed at me. Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
As he looks down on both of us.
But okay, and then is there anything else that you would recommend to someone new, like aside from the obvious thing, like if you have a buddy out there who plays?
Yeah, it's like any other like art or skill or hobby. Like, surround yourself with it. Like, watch the people that are great at it. Like, watch the Brendan Lee Mulligans, watch the Matt Mercers, watch Matthew Lillard, like watch these people that play D&D a lot. Watch Joe Manganiello.
Yeah.
Like, watch these people that are so good at it and have literally spent decades of their life crafting their ability to play, like Will Wheatons of the world. Like, see how they do it, and how I think there's this perception of people who don't play D&D of what D&D is. And it's this, like, whether it's the old school view of like, it's this like weird, like demonic satanic thing, and I don't want to do it because of, it's like, no. But that you need to have this characterization about yourself that you have to be a certain type of person to play. And that is so far removed from what the truth is. You can be a theater kid and really shine in your element of playing the you, the me, the Jeremy, but you can also be a little bit more quiet, reserved, like a Trevin type of player. And I think some of our best moments in our campaigns have come from a like quiet interjection from like a character like Houdini, who sits and waits for literally
any
tens
pun he can make
of like tens of minutes, just kind of quietly, patiently waiting for us to do whatever our shenanigans are, for him then to just pop in on his turn, say some owl themed pun.
I know.
And then go on like a 12 roll run of critting every single roll and getting us through a moment that I don't think any of us would have been able to do.
Well, and I've noticed with like Dr. RPG, when it comes to that stuff, he's taking notes so heavily. Yeah. Like, it's really awesome, especially like when I was leading us in the Dorth Arid saga recently that we started. But yeah, I would be curious to see Trevin's thoughts also on some of these questions. Yeah. I will say, and I'll just brag it here on the air, that I've been really impressed. A lot of the things that you've told me were like kind of your thoughts of problem player things. I've not witnessed it once. There's like, I've caught when you definitely take a moment to shine, but there's a lot of times I've noticed that you just let like me or others have the floor. And when we originally were talking about stuff on working on, I would say I've actually seen it. I really enjoy playing with you as a character and as a player versus a DM sort of thing. It's been really cool watching you grow and learn.
Thank you. That's the difference of playing in my 30s versus if I would have tried playing D&D in like my 20s.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's exactly it, as we are some of like the older guys who are playing this and we're not like new like youngins. It's been cool watching you kind of pick up things from players who've been playing for a long time. Yeah. And then the things you even catch from like Liz and Trevin, where they've had less experience than you, but they come up with something that you're just like, whoa. And like, I can see it on your face. It's really cool.
Oh yeah. I'm having a lot of fun. My 30s have become like, they always say like your creative like height in just human development is in like your 30s and 40s. And I think I'm really seeing that kind of adapt into like a lot of, like I've gotten into magic in my 30s. I've like not magic, like hand magic, like a magician, but like Magic the Gathering. Like really, I'm
sure with our crowd here, they knew immediately, but I got exactly what you're doing. I think it's because we were just talking about Houdini.
Yeah. It's really just me honing in on a bunch of this different like Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro like IP. But like Magic the Gathering, D&D, my son is really into like Power Rangers, like getting into all these like fun, like fantasy, like really creative outlets is like, this is, I'm totally in it. Like, and it's really, really fun to play. My son like tells me to go have fun playing D&D. Like when I leave, he's almost 5. And then I'll come home or like the next morning, he'd like, can we play eventually? And so that's where like, the Tots one of like watching Jeremy and how he handles like his nephews and stuff. It's like, okay, do this, simplify that, like make this. I don't think I'm necessarily ready to show him pictures of like Dragonborn characters or even some of the goblins, but it's like, I think there's a very creative and nifty way that I could get him to just even experience the gist and like a very simplified like mechanics of, we get to choose what we want to do, bud. What do you want to do?
You know, and I think he's probably at about the right age to, if you want to ever bring him over, we'll set up a game that's like you, my wife, and both the kiddos and such. So you guys can kind of help them out. Yeah. And I can run a simple thing. I know Dr. RPG has wanted to bring his kids over and do so. Well, thank you, Rick, for kind of having this combo with us.
This is fun. I can't wait to hear the solo profile of everybody else too.
Yeah. You know, producer Chris, you didn't tell him, did you? That we were just singling him out.
Oh, cool. That's going to help the main character syndrome.
Producer Chris, you mind taking it away on the where they can find us and what they can do?
You guys, make sure you follow, rate, and review this podcast, Tabletop Talk, on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Follow us on X at TT Talk Pod for updates, podcast episodes, and YouTube releases. Follow us on TikTok at TabletopTV LLC. We're posting there as well. Also, join our Reddit page at r/TabletopTV. And finally, make sure you go like and subscribe to our YouTube channel called Tabletop TV, where we're posting tabletop gameplay and rules, how to play, campaign videos over there. All these links are in our Linktree at linktr.ee/tabletoptalk. Also, all of these are down in the description of these episodes. Back to you guys.
Thank you guys for listening to our show today. Again, Rick, thank you for making it. And we love you guys. Have great adventures out there and be safe.
Deuces.